Well, I'm gonna hop on this call. I want to thank Jason for being here, Anthony for wrangling this whole thing. We'll have some people wander in aimlessly late as usual, and a few more people join the call late. But we're going to give Jason the floor here. We're inside the Couch Amateur Radio Club. Jason's been here before, but for anybody that's visitor, this is the clubhouse, and you're viewing the crowd, such as it is. So without further ado, Jason, I'll give you the floor to speak whatever you want to speak about.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all having me tonight. I didn't know if y'all were going to do like a business meeting or something first, but that is fine. Oh yeah, Richard, are you in VK land right now, Richard? That's funny.
Yes, I am. I'm down in Sydney on business, and it just so happened that this coincided with my lunch break, so I've got myself into a spare conference room and joined. So g'day.
Nice, very cool. Thanks for joining. All right, let's see if I can screen share here. Yeah, there we go. And basic screen. No, it's not. Let's do that. All right, so I'm not going to do the full screen thing. I'm going to, so you can see the slides down the side there, but can you guys see that screen share okay?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so Parks on the Air. If I was in a live classroom right now, I'd say who's ever heard of Parks on the Air and who's ever done Parks on the Air. So you can raise your hand if you want to, but I don't. I can't see everybody. So that's okay. But Parks on the Air is a program that was started by a couple of guys around 2017, and it immediately followed the National Parks on the Air event that happened for the entire year of 2016, January 1st to December 31st, put on by the ARRL. It's one of their efforts to try to get people out and on the air that year. I think the following year they did like a grid square chase, or maybe that was 2 years later. Anyway, that was kind of a neat thing that they came up with. And a couple guys thought it was a really good idea to keep going for longer than just that 1 year. So they created Parks on the Air. So now we've got Parks on the Air. And I got an email from them, I think it was like a month ago, saying they had crossed, it was either their 10 millionth or I think it was their 10 millionth logged contact for Parks on the Air, just like within the last few weeks. So Parks on the Air is alive and well. It's a great HF radio activity. It's a great activity if you want to do it, if you want to go out to a park and activate, or it's a great activity if you want to sit at home in the shack, or if you're on a road trip and got a mobile station, because everybody is welcome. So I'll talk about that here in a little bit. I'll introduce myself. My name's Jason. I'm KC5HWB. I was licensed in 1994. I currently live in Grapevine. And I was living in Louisville when I got licensed in 94. And I was heavy in the ham radio for a couple of years, and then I dropped out of it, and then I got back into it, and in and out for the last 28 years. But I got back into it around 2012, and I'm in pretty solid into it since then. I run a YouTube channel called Ham Radio 2.0 and do a lot of videos about just all kinds of stuff, but Parks on the Air is definitely one of the focal points of stuff that I do on the channel. Through my efforts on YouTube, I've met up with a lot of other ham radio guys. Some of them have YouTube channels of their own. And if you guys have never met Mike, K8MRD, he lives down in Huntsville, Texas now. He moved down there about a year and a half ago. And he's originally, he was from Michigan for several years before that, but he started his channel when he was in Michigan. He does a lot of Parks on the Air stuff. Does a lot of antenna reviews and antenna building for portable backpack Parks on the Air stuff. So go check out his channel if you've never heard of him. He's a good dude, and kind of got me interested in Parks on the Air a little bit. But since he lives in Texas now, we get together periodically every other month or so and go play POTA somewhere in like the Galveston area or the Huntsville area. So a lot of good information on his channel though. But some of the common questions we get asked is how do I get started in POTA? POTA is the acronym for Parks on the Air. We call it POTA a lot of the times. In fact, their website is pota.app, pota.app, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. They still have the domain parksontheair.com, but they completely rewrote the website. Brand new software, a lot of added features to it when they launched POTA.app several months ago, maybe a year ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but POTA.app is their newest website. You can pull that up 24/7 and look and see who's at a park right now and what mode, band, everything they're operating on, and then you can tune your radio to that mode and band and see if you can hear that person. FT8, CW, single sideband. Get some guys out there doing either single sideband or FN simplex on 2 meters sometimes. So it's an all-around great entity. What are some common types of radios? What types of antennas? Different types of batteries, and logging and submitting logs. So we'll talk about that. If anyone has any questions or anything as I go, feel free to stop me. Sometimes I tend to do these presentations a little bit quick because I talk quick. And if anyone wants to stop me and ask a question, please do feel free. Okay, so why Parks on the Air? Enjoy your state and national parks. Be the station everyone wants to work. Practice emergency comms and have fun. So be the station that everyone wants to work. I don't know who here has been privileged to ever actually travel to another country and perform a de-expedition. I've done that myself 4 times to the country of Costa Rica. And I've been like I said a minute ago, I've been a ham radio operator since 94, but I got my general ticket in like 2012. So I haven't been into HF that long, maybe about 10 years. And the most fun I have ever had in ham radio by far was the first time I ever went to Costa Rica and sat down at the mic and started calling CQDX from Tango India 7 Stroke Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Whiskey Bravo. And there was one day where everybody else was going out they were going into town. They went on a nature hike on the backside of the volcano where the property was that we were staying at. And I decided to stay there because I wanted to stay there and play radio. And I sat down at that radio station about 7:30 or 8 in the morning. And besides a couple of breaks to get up and stretch and walk around and maybe grab something to eat, I sat at that station until about 6 p.m. that night and just worked pileups the whole time. And that's by far the most fun I've ever had with ham radio. Parks on the Air is similar to that because when you go to a park and activate and post yourself on the website, you can spot yourself on the website. It's not required, but it is acceptable. Or you can just start calling CQ POTA on single sideband or CW. You will work pileups. You will get, unless you got a problem with your radio station, once the word gets out, you will start working pileups and someone will spot for you. Sometimes it's a little game that Mike and I play as far as we go out to a park and start calling CQ and we see how long it is until someone else spots us and then the pileup really gets rolling. So, but Parks on the Air is the closest thing, in my opinion, to exist inside of the United States that's similar to being that rare DX. And Costa Rica is not even that rare of a DX, but it's still better DX than any of the USA stations, of course. But Parks on the Air is very similar to that because people want to work Parks on the Air. They want to get those activity logs in their logs for chasing parks, and they like being making those contacts. So you will work pileups when you go out to Parks on the Air. Practice emergency comms is very similar to field day because you are out in a park. Generally speaking, you're running on battery power on a portable antenna, and of course a radio that's not plugged into a AC power in your main somewhere. So Parks on the Air is definitely one of the most fun ventures I've had in ham radio in the last several years. So this is a screenshot of the website. If you go to POTA.app, you can create a free account under your call sign, and then it starts tracking you. You might find that if you've never activated a park, you might find that you go to POTA.app and look up your call sign, and you're already on there as a chaser or a hunter. Because the cool thing about Parks on the Air is that the hunter, you and I sitting in our ham shacks, and if we make a contact with someone who's at a park, when that person activating the park submits their logs to the website, we as the hunters get credit for it. So if anyone's ever done Summits on the Air or SOTA, it works a little bit differently where the chaser and the SOTA activator both have to submit logs to the website to get credit for each person to get credit. Parks on the Air works differently than that. Only the activator has to submit logs. So if you've ever worked anyone Parks on the Air from home or just, tuning around the BAM no matter what you were doing. Some guys will activate field day from a park, so they'll double submit logs. They'll submit their field day log and they'll submit parks on the air log. So if you've ever worked a guy activating a park, you might have credit as a chaser or hunter on the website right now that you don't even know about. So go out there to POTA.app and search for your own call sign and create a free account if you don't have one already. But you can find spots, like I said a minute ago, and about who's out at a park, what state they're in, what park they're in, what frequency they're on, what mode they're operating. You can spot yourself. You can win awards. All these little squares on my page here are the awards that I have won just from getting out there and getting on the air. You can upload your own log. It used to be you had to take your log and export it to a native file and send it to a coordinator for your section. They changed that a few months ago, and now you can upload your own logs to the website, so you don't have to wait on anyone else. You can basically get real-time statistics, and there's no logs for hunters. Like I said, if you're sitting at home and you work this guy on Parks in the Air, you tune around the band and work another guy, those guys, when they submit their logs, the hunters will get credit for it. So it's a really easy way to get points for working those guys activating parks. This is the awards and achievements page. It might be kind of a little bit hard to see there, but you can get awards for working more than one park in a day. You can get awards for once you get 1,000 contacts at a certain park, you get what's called a kilo award. And even if that takes you 6 or 12 months, it doesn't matter because those logs accumulate and they never reset. So if you go out to a park today and make 25 contacts and then don't go back for a year, when you go back a year from now, you'll still have those 25 contacts in your log for activating that park. You have to make 10 contacts in order to quote unquote activate the park. So if you go sit at a park today and you only make 8 contacts, you're not technically activated. You can still submit your log and it will show you as a failed activation on the website, but everyone who hunted you will still get credit. Some guys do that. Again, it's not really hard to get 10 contacts because once you get out there and get on the air and start getting people noticing you, it's pretty easy to run pileups. But there's cool things for activating a late shift, like after 7 p.m. at night, activating the first person to ever activate a park, that kind of thing. So just kind of a lot of different achievements out there that are just there for fun. This is what the spotter page looks like. Each of these squares, you can do it in this kind of like this tiled look, or you can do it in line by line if you want to. You can change the view of the website if you want to. But each of these squares here represents the call sign and what park number they're at. All of the parks inside the United States start with a kilo, so it's kilo dash and a 4-digit number. Parks in Canada will start with Victor Echo. There's some parks in Mexico that start with either X-Ray Echo or X-Ray Foxtrot. So depending on the country designation, is the first letter, and then it's usually a 4-digit number after that. So that's the park designation, and then it tells you the name of the park, what state they're in, what mode and frequency they're on, who the person is who spotted them, and then it gives you a little comments list down at the bottom, and you can say, "Hey, 59 from Texas" or whatever, and then and the very last line down there says "last heard." It might say "last heard 30 seconds ago," or it might say last heard 15, 20 minutes ago. And if it's been 15, 20 minutes since anybody's heard them, they might have gone QRT by now, but you can still tune around and see if you can hear them out there. That's a little bit zoomed in look of what I was just talking about. That's Pat, Whiskey Alpha 7, Papa Bravo Echo. He's a friend of mine in West Virginia, and he does a lot of Parks in the Air. So he's a good dude. He's out there a lot. If you ever have him in your log, if you have Ham Alert set up on your phone, you'll see him a lot if you add him to the list. This is a screenshot of a couple of awards. Late shift means I've submitted proof of having activated 10 POTA activations with at least 10 QSOs between the hours of 0 Zulu and noon and 12 o'clock Zulu, 1200 hours Zulu. POTA does follow the Zulu UTC hour. So currently right now, with the daylight savings being weird the way it is, Zulu starts over for us in Texas at 6 p.m. So at 6 p.m. every night, your log is wiped clean and you start over again. And you can activate a park every day if you want to and get credit for activating that, getting at least 10 contacts every day. Or you can, and you don't have to stop at 10. You can sit there and get 100 today, 100 tomorrow, 100 the next day. but it starts over every zero Zulu hour. So if you go out this morning and make 5 or 6 contacts and you're like, man, I got to go do something, and then come back later and then make 5 or 6 more contacts in the afternoon, as long as you do it before the zero Zulu day resets, it all counts as the same activation day, and you can activate that park by getting 10 contacts just somewhere in that 24-hour period. This is the Arizona Agave Award. I don't even remember what that one is. Proof of working 100 unique referenced areas in Parks in the Air program. So that's the award I got for working 100 unique parks. So there's, or I'm sorry, that's the award I got for hunting 100 unique parks. There's one for activators as well. Activators and hunters both get awards. Like I said, if you've done a lot, if you're on HF a lot and you just tune around and go back to people calling CQ, you might have your name in there as a hunter with some of these awards already. So go check the website out. These are some of the radios that I have personally used. Parks on the Air, not listed here as, do I have something down there for? Generally speaking, these are all QRP radios, obviously. Yeah, I don't have anything else for high-powered radios. Most of the time, I don't usually operate QRP. A lot of guys like QRP, nothing in the world wrong with it. I'm currently learning CW. I'm very, very slow and not proficient at all. But one of these days, I hope to go out and be able to do a CW park activation. But right now, the radio that I generally use is a full power Yaesu FTDX10. I have a ICOM IC7300 that I used to use. I personally prefer the Yaesu, but both of those are really good 100-watt rigs. The Yaesu FT891, of course, is a small, compact 100-watt rig. And I like to use 100 watts when doing Parks on the Air just because I find it easier. Down here in the flatlands of Texas, we don't have a lot of hills and mountains to climb up, so sometimes QRP is a little bit harder. But these are some of the QRP radios that I haven't used the Yaesu. A couple guys use the Yaesu. I don't own one of those, but I have a 705, I have a 6100, I have this Lab 599 radio, and I have an Elecraft KX3, and I've activated Parks in the Air with all of those radios, and it's been really fun. It's to do that with QRP sometimes, depending on if you can get in there and work that pileup and people can hear you. If you can spot yourself on the website, you can still work pileups with QRP even on single sideband. So it's a fun challenge to put to yourself if you enjoy that sort of thing. QRO radio. Okay, yeah, that I couldn't remember if I included that slide or not. So obviously the 73 and 7200, FTDX10, FT891. Elecraft K3 and the ICOM IC7000. IC7000 is the one I have in my truck right now. A lot of times I will hunt POTA while I'm on road trips. I'll just tune around the band and listen for people calling CQ POTA. And the Elecraft K3, I recently picked one of those up and haven't quite done a POTA with it yet, but that is a really sweet radio. And it's lighter weight than you think it is. Those of you who own one already know that, but it's a very lightweight 100-watt radio for easy to carry around and put. I have all my radios in like Pelican style cases or Apache cases from Harbor Freight, and I just put them in a case and lock them up, and that way they're safe to travel with, and I'll throw them in the back seat of the truck, and when I get to where I'm going, I just pull them out and connect them to a battery and go. But currently my favorite radio is the Yaesu FTDX10. Nothing wrong with any of these other radios, of course. That's just my own personal preference. Types of antennas used, and another rule I should say about Parks on the Air is it's very easy. A lot of times I will call Parks on the Air, I'll call it the lazy man's way to operate HF. The only rule really is that you have to be inside the park. That's really it. You can operate from the vehicle, outside of the vehicle, from a picnic table, from any type of radio or antenna on any band, because it's not a contest. So you can operate on 12 and 17 meters. In fact, there was one weekend we were down at Galveston Island State Park, and it was a contest weekend. I think it was January 1st, if I remember correctly, which was a Saturday this year, 2022. And we were down there, and there was this contest all over 20 meters. We're like, okay, let's go to 17. So we dropped down to 17 and activated the park on 17 meters. Mike and I each got 50, 75 contacts, because people who don't care to contest or don't like contesting for whatever reason are hanging out on 17 meters, and the band was certainly open that day. So you can be inside the park and be on any band you want to. And then all of these types of antennas work really well. A PAC antenna, most of you are probably familiar with the PAC antenna, infed half wave. He's also got a link dipole, really small, lightweight, really well built antennas. Sparkpluggear.com is another antenna I use. It's just it's a 9-to-1, or he's got a couple of them. I think he's got a 9-to-1 for a random wire and a 49-to-1 for an infed half wave. And you just add your own wire to it for whatever band you want. KM4ACK makes a 60-watt version, and K6ARK makes some ununs, 9-to-1, 64-to-1, 49-to-1 ununs for infed half waves for QRP 5 watts and also QRP 20 watts. I think he's working on a 100-watt model right now, but he makes a lot of QRP type antennas. Verticals like a DX Commander or a TN07 flagpole antenna, they don't take up a lot of real estate because they are verticals, and they work well a lot of times in parks in the air, depending on how much room you got to spread out at whatever park you're trying to activate today. And then, of course, your screwdriver antennas and your ham sticks on your vehicle is perfectly acceptable way to activate parks on the air. I did a video on my YouTube channel with my IC7000 and some ham sticks on the truck, and I just sat in the truck inside of the park and activated just to show, hey, you can do this and it's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to get out of the truck. On summits on the air, you have to get out of your vehicle and walk a certain distance from it. You can't be attached to the vehicle at all. But with parks on the air, that does not matter. You can be inside the vehicle. In fact, I've activated a park in the pouring rain and been inside my truck on the IC7000 with a ham stick and made 20 or 30 contacts in the pouring rain and got my activation in that day. So the only stringent rule they have is be inside the boundaries of the park and you're good to go. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Yeah, Jason, when you upload the log to the POTA site, does it also transfer the records to Logbook of the World or QRZ or anything like that, or do you have to do that separately?
You have to do that separately. Last I checked, you do not, it does not do that automatically. I don't think they have that built in there. I think some people have requested it and they're looking at doing that, but as of right now, it does not do that automatically.
Yeah. And can you just elaborate on self-spotting? I thought there was something that you weren't supposed to do that or something like that. I just can't remember the detail around it.
For parks in the air, it does not matter. If self-spotting is completely acceptable and is completely allowable, somebody who's more versed in contesting can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe self-spotting is only disallowed in certain contests where you're not supposed to spot yourself, and there's even some categories in some contests where even using a spotter app at all is not allowed, or at least you submit your logs that way to assisted, non-assisted, and all that stuff. But for parks on the air, since it's not technically a contest, it's a 24/7 event, and yeah, we keep. There's not really points kept for parks in the air. They tally the total number of contacts you've made per park and total. When you log into your account at POTA.app, it'll tell you how many contacts you've made total. But, that's just like a logbook entry. You can open up your logbook and see how many QSOs you've made, how many contacts you've made. So they don't really tally points per se in parks in the air, other than just keeping a total of a number of QSOs at each place. So it's not really a contest. So self-spotting is completely allowable. Most people self-spot themselves. I've done it so many times now where I'll go out to a park and just sit down and start calling CQ. And if I have a hard time if I've been calling CQ for 20 or 30 minutes and I'm just not getting any love, I'll spot myself. But I usually won't do it immediately unless I'm in a hurry or something. But yeah, nobody cares about that. It's completely acceptable.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any parks that have antenna restrictions and something you should be aware of?
Yes. Yeah. So Texas state parks, for the most part, don't have anything. I've been to parks in other states where they say you can't put anything you can't throw a line over a tree. They don't like you doing that. You can't drive a stake into the ground, that kind of thing. So it varies by state and it varies by park. So my suggestion would be to just look up the park that you're going to activate and read up on the rules on it. There's national parks, there's state parks, there's wildlife management areas. Historical sites are a lot of times POTA entities. We activated Kitty Hawk in North Carolina last year, and Kitty Hawk would not let us set up anything in the park. We couldn't set up an antenna on the ground. We couldn't put anything in a tree. They said, you can sit in the parking lot and activate from your car. And we're like, okay, we'll do that. And that's exactly what we did. But yeah, depending on the park and the state, it kind of varies. All right. If anybody else.
Yeah. Where do you find the details of which which parks qualify, what the number is? And is there any kudos to having special parks that people very rarely get to, so you're going to be hunted down as a result of that or anything like that?
Yes. Yeah. So if you go to the POTA.app website, you can search, they have a listing of all the parks there, and they have a map with that list. So you can just find the list, alphabetically. And you can also find a map. You can search by state. You can search by DX entity. So you can search all the parks in Mexico if you want to. You can search all the parks in Australia. I know for a fact Australia has POTA entities. So you can search that way and find out what's where. You can search for most hunted and most activated parks, and you can search for least hunted and least activated parks. So you can see if anything's near you that people might want to get. You can also search for parks for how long, because they'll add parks. Every year they'll add a few new parks. Like I think last year they added I want to say they added, it was either 2020 or 2021. I can't remember. They added 70 new parks to Texas. So, it's just because you've been and lived in an area for a few years, you're like, well, there's not anything around me, but you haven't looked in 2 or 3 years, go look again, because there might be something near you. Because it's not all just state and national parks. Like I said, they have wildlife management areas, historical sites, like certain trails, certain historical trails, like the Trail of Tears is a POTA entity. The Appalachian Trail is a POTA entity, and stuff like that. So if you have something around you that's like a tourist attraction, basically, you might look and see on the website, because it might be a POTA entity. But all of that information is on their website. They do a very good job of documenting everything over there.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. So this is a short slide here. If I can click on the right thing. Batteries in the field. I think most of us these days use lithium iron phosphate batteries. These BioWinnows on the far left are incredibly good batteries. I've got 5 or 6 of these types of batteries. Kevin at BioWinnow, he does a fantastic job. He's built batteries for the military in the past. So get yourself a battery, a lightweight lithium iron phosphate battery. The BioWinnows obviously have power pulls on it, like you can see right there. So you get power pulls on your radio, plug directly into that, and you can run on a battery. Especially if you're on sideband, you can run on one of these 15 or 20 amp hour batteries literally all day. This PO4 power battery is a lithium iron phosphate battery that Gigaparts designs and sells on their website. And then these Miati batteries, which are cheap Amazon cheap Amazon batteries that you can find up there in different sizes. I've got a couple of these, and I've actually had very good luck with them. I've got one of them that's 3 years old, and I just did a test on it a few months ago, and it tested at 97% capacity. So I've been very happy with the Miati, how do we say that, brand of battery. Some people don't like them. Some people say they're junk, and I'm like, there's a quality control issue with stuff that comes out of China, as most of us know. And if you get a bad one, Amazon's really good about replacing them. But for the most part, I know several people that use the cheaper Miati batteries, and I really like them. But those BioWinnows are going to last you basically forever. So it just depends on how much you want to spend. But get a lithium iron phosphate battery. It'll run your radio in the field, and that way you don't have to worry about finding mains to plug into and using a power supply or something. And these are very small, lightweight batteries. Talking about QRZ and Logbook of the World a minute ago, there's logging software for Parks on the Air. When Parks on the Air first started, there was no template in N1MM or N3FJP for it. I believe N1MM has one now, but I think it's user created, if I'm not mistaken. I think that somebody in the user community created a template for that. It's not part of the official build, but it's out there. But there's this guy named Jarrett that wrote this app called, and he calls it Hammers, and it's just ham radio software, ham RS. We all call it Hammers. But hammers.app, you can download it for free for Windows and Mac OS. You can get it. It's on virtually every platform. You can get it for iOS on your iPhone or Google Play Store. He does charge a one-time fee of $4.99 per Play Store. One time for Apple, one time for Google. And if you buy, I don't have an iPhone, but I bought it on Google and I've downloaded it on my tablet and 2 different phones. And you can download it and install it as many times as you want because it just follows your Google account. And the only reason he charges for it in the app store, the smartphone app stores, is because they charge him. So, but you can get the desktop version for Windows for free and the Mac OS version for free. You can even get it for I believe Debian Linux, and it will run on a Raspberry Pi. So you can put it on a Raspberry Pi as well. So Hammers is a really great app that was originally designed specifically for Parks on the Air. It has a correct template for park designation, park location, what band and frequency you're running, how much power you're running, activator call sign, club call sign. If you're activating as a club, here's another cool thing about Parks on the Air. If you're activating as a club, let's say I think you guys are K5COW if I'm not mistaken. So let's say 2 or 3 of you wanted to go out and activate a park in the area, and you went out as a club, and you called CQ as K5COW. Well, inside of this logging software, it has a spot for activator call sign, and it has I think they call it they either call it club call sign or main call sign or something like that. So you put your call sign, your personal call sign in the activator call sign as the activator, and you put K5COW as the club call sign. And when you submit that log to POTA.app, both you and the club get credit for it. So if you go out to a park today and activate as K5COW and make 25 contacts and say my call sign is KC5HWB, when I submit that log, K5COW will get credit for those 25 activator contacts in that park, and I, under KC5HWB, will also get those 25 contacts and credit for activating that park. So a lot of guys they just go out and activate it under their club call signs now. They don't even use their own call sign anymore because they know they're going to get double credit. You're going to get credit for it under your own call sign anyway. So that's a really cool thing. So the Hammers software accounts for that, is easy to log for that. And then you can just easily export it as an ADI file and upload it to POTA.app and save it in your own logbook. And through Hammers, you can set up Hammers to automatically upload to Logbook of the World, QRZ, and I think HamQTH or something. No, not that one. There's another one. There's another one it'll upload to. It's not one that I use. It's not EQSL. It's something else. And but Hammers will look up call signs for you. So if you have an internet connection, it will, when you're sitting down there calling CQ POTA at the park and say I come back to KC5HWB, you type in my call sign into the Hammers app, it pops up a little window at the top right corner. It says Jason, KC5HWB in Grapevine, Texas. And he's like, and so the activator is like, hey, Jason, how you doing? Thanks for activating today. You're 5-7 in this park. Okay, fine, thanks. And then you go on to the next one. So Hammers will tell you who the person is, what their name is, where they're located, and if that person's activating a park and you're going to work a park to park, which is a really cool thing to do, it'll tell you what park they're at as well. So Hammers is a great app. I really recommend it. The guy who wrote it, his name is Jarrett. I want to say he's in Kansas, and he does active updates with it. So it's a very well kept up app. This is what the logging looks like inside of. You can go down to the map inside of Hammers, and the green dot in the middle is obviously me. Or yeah, I think I was either at LBJ Grasslands or Cedar Hill State Park when on that activation. I don't remember which one it was right now, but that's me, and that's all the contacts I made on I don't remember. Actually, you know what? I think this was at Lake Texoma, because this was like 2 or 3 days worth of contacts. That's why they're all over the place. Generally speaking, if you go out in the morning, you activate, or you go out in the evening, you activate, you're either going to make all your contacts either all to the west or all to the east, or at least 90% of them in one direction or the other. We have the privilege of living in Texas for multiple reasons. It's a privilege, but we're right smack dab in the middle of the country. So usually you're going to get propagation in one direction or the other, maybe a few propagations in the other direction, but usually it's going to be one direction or the other. But this one right here, I think represents 2 or 3 days, because it's you can tell it's all over the place. But the app, as you're logging contacts and hammers, if you just scroll down to the bottom of the window where you're logging contacts, it has an active real-time map, and it'll show you where all your contacts made. Then you can export that map, and I use that screenshot on a lot of my videos just because it's really cool to look at. Say, wow, I made all those contacts today. That's fun. So hammers.ai, and again, you can use any logging software you want. I know a lot of guys who just use paper logs and they'll scan them or something later, or manually upload them, however they do that. But Hammers makes it easy. It's very quick, easy, and it works. And it was designed specifically for Parks on the Air. He has other templates now. He has SOTA and Field Day and Winter Field Day templates in there as well. But originally it was designed for Parks on the Air. So that's pretty much it. That's a pretty quick rundown of everything that Parks on the Air. But if you guys, if I leave you with one thing, it's just to say, if you've never done Parks in the Air, try it. Go out. I think the closest park to us here, of course, you guys are a bit farther west than I am. The closest park to me is actually Cedar Hill State Park. LBJ Grasslands up there, just north of Decatur, is not too much farther. There's a park in Richardson somewhere off of like Spring Valley and 75. I've never been to that one. And Lake Whitney has a park, and who else? Like Palo Duro Canyon's a park, and there's a few around here, but they're not really. There's nothing like really inside of the Metroplex at DFW, but there's a bunch of stuff kind of surrounding us. So you might have to set aside an afternoon or a morning sometime if you want to drive out to one. But I highly suggest doing it if you enjoy field radio and getting on the air, and you enjoy working pileups. It's definitely something to do to you'll get hooked on it. It's pretty easy to get hooked on it. Once you do it 2 or 3 times, you're like, wow, this is fun.
Hey, Jason, Mike K5HWB here at the Cowtown Club. As I looked at your map, it looked like you're skipping a state. Do you ever change bands or change antennas to get more coverage, or get you busy?
Mike is really good about that. He will take an antenna switch with him, and he'll set up an in-fed half wave, sloped in a certain direction, and he'll also set up like a vertical. And he likes to play around and see which one hears better and that kind of thing. But yeah, you can do that. It's not that difficult. I typically don't do that. I typically just go out there and just see who's listening. It's really fun going down to Galveston and hearing the guys in the Azores and in Cuba and in Mexico, and they sound like they're the next state over, just because you're right there on the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, you can certainly do that. It's something I've done 1 or 2 times, but I don't practice that. No. Yeah, Lake Mineral Wells State Park. Yeah, I have activated that one too. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you charge those batteries?
Well, I charge them at home before I go out. Because,
what kind of charger are you using?
BioWinnow has a charger is just a regular wall charger, but I also have solar panels that I take out with them and use like the Buddy Pole Power Mini 2 solar charge controller and plug that in. Or I also have a BioWinnow makes a solar charge controller. So sometimes if I'm going to be out there all day or for a weekend, I'll take a solar panel with me.
Okay.
Sam, you do POTA, don't you?
Yeah, I've activated 8 or 9 parks. I think 4 or 5 here in Texas. A couple up in the Northeast. Yeah, it's cool. I just do CW, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm actually thinking about going tomorrow. If anybody wants to consider maybe going to see what that's about.
Where do you go, Sam?
Well, I just kind of right now I'm just kind of picking a park that I haven't been to before, but I think I'm going to see your
Well, what I can find is Marble Falls, or no, not Marble Falls. It's out here on I-20.
Yeah, I think the closest, as Jason was saying, I think the closest for us is Cedar Hill. but it's also Cleburne, Dinosaur Valley.
Yeah,
about 45 minutes.
Closer. Yeah, good roads.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, I'm thinking maybe going out to check the weather, but we'll see what that's about.
Where are you going? Cedar Hill, you said?
I need to look, but I'm thinking, Cedar Hill. It's a great place to do it.
Being able to do it out of the vehicle sounds like a good idea.
That I don't have. I usually just throw, I've done it a few different ways. I've got a wiring set up there. Hole that I've used. And I've used a magnetic loop, although I've actually, that's been the toughest one. Yeah, I've actually had some difficulty with that.
Those magnetic loops tend to work better for CW, I believe, but I know guys who's used those. Those can be fun to use.
Glendon's got a question.
Hey, Jason?
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for parks in the area that have decent cell service? Because I've got my laptops on my data plan. That's why I was going to run through it. I've tried several like Lake Mineral Wells and Dinosaur Park and Cleburne, and they don't seem to have very good cell service because they're kind of in a bowl.
Right.
I know that you said Lyndon Baines Johnson National Grassland. That'd probably be pretty good.
Yeah, it's such a large area. If you go out there and can't get cell service, just drive 2 or 3 miles in either direction. So because it's huge. But as I recall, Cedar Hill had pretty good cell service because it's up on top of that. It's on the highest peak in DFW. But yeah, I've activated Lake Mineral Wells. I do remember it kind of being a dead spot out there. The good and bad thing about a lot of these parks is they are out away from civilization, and a lot of them are really pretty as a result. But yeah, sometimes the self-service can be kind of lacking. I know the self-service works fine at Galveston Island State Park. That's the one I've activated the most because we're down there all the time. But as I recall, Cedar Hill works pretty well too.
Yeah, I've tried to hunt. Like I was down at Corpus Christi. I was even in Oregon a couple of years ago, but I wasn't able to get through or couldn't get anyone to hear me. So I just keep working at it.
Yeah, that's what you do.
I was going to say, my experience, that is an issue. I have one failed activation, and that was Cleburne. I had no coverage. It is in a bowl, so it's hard being heard, but it's definitely a factor if you do want to try to self-spot. So you might want to check your coverage and your service plan. And even I was operating CW with a little bit, it can be frustrating. It is an issue, I agree.
You'd always do something totally off the wall and take a dual band HT with you and get on the local repeater and ask someone else to spot you. I've done that before, actually. I know we everybody complains about how dead the repeaters are. I'm like, well, go use them then. Get on the repeater and say, hey, can anyone spot me on POTA.app, please?
Something maybe have you heard of this APRS? You doing spotting by APRS? Isn't there like a gateway to do that? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, they've been knocking that idea around for a while. I don't know the status of it, and I've never tried it myself. But that would be a really fun thing once they get that going. So I don't really know anything about it.
All right.
Hey, Jason, it's Anthony, KG5JPU.
Yeah.
I have a question to ask you. Has anybody operated FT8 doing POTA?
Absolutely. A lot of FT8 doing POTA. Yep. In fact, we were at the Sierra Nevada sometime last fall. I went out there and visited Adam, K6ARK, and a couple other guys. Frank went with me, and Charlie, NJ7 Victor from Red Summit RF YouTube channel. He met us out there. And we camped in a national park, and it was like in a valley between 2 or 3 mountains. So you got these soda spot up there and soda spot over there and all these soda spots around you. But you're inside the national park at the campsite, and it's just in a hole, basically. So I called CQ on my 705. I only had my 705 with me. I called CQ on my 705 for like 30 minutes, and I'm like, screw this. So I brought my laptop out, plugged it in, started calling CQ POTA on FT8, and I made contacts that way. And that's how I activated that park that night. So yeah, absolutely, you can do FT8.
I know you were talking about the majority of people that operate POTA using solar panel batteries. Do people operate using generators?
I have. Yep. We another ham radio club I'm a member of called Ham Radio Adventures. They're kind of a loosely knit club, but they don't have a location. They just get together and they go out and do POTA and field day and whatnot. They're all about field radio. We went to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. That was where we activated Kitty Hawk. We went to the Outer Banks for that weekend. We were there for about 4 days, and we took generators because we were camping. So we had generators to use at night and whatnot, and recharge our batteries on our trailers and whatnot. We set up the Buddy Hex beam, and we may or may not have had a KPA 500 hooked to that generator in the park. So that was really fun. But yes, you can absolutely do that.
I was talking to some members of the Kilocycle Club a few days ago, and they had told me you were down there with some of the members that were vets operating in Lake Whitney this past weekend, and I heard it went very well.
I was not there this time. They invited me, but I had a conflict and I was not able to make it.
Okay. So what I was thinking, since maybe as a club, maybe we can set something up maybe in the spring, this coming spring. And I was going to see if you'd be interested in participating with us, if I can get everything together, if everybody's on the same page or like the idea.
I would be interested. Yeah. Just got to make sure my schedule permits it. But yeah, those guys at Kilocycle have done that Lake Whitney thing before. And the last time they did it, I went out there with them. I spent the afternoon on Saturday with them, but I wasn't able to make it this time. But yeah, keep me posted. I'd love to go with you guys.
Well, I appreciate it, Jason, taking your time and explaining everything about POTA, because I know I'm sure there's some folks in the club that operate POTA and they enjoy it. And there's probably people in the club that have no idea what POTA is all about, especially a senior ham or a new ham or a newbie or whatever. And the key is getting them, everybody on the radio. But I want to say thank you.
Sure. No problem at all.
I also want to make a comment that this is part of the Cowtown Amateur Radio Club continuing education. So the third Thursday every month, we have some kind of presentation. We've had some remote ones. We've had a lot of mostly local ones. So I want to thank you also, Jason, for being part of that. And there was at least one person in the call that's not a member. So everyone else here knows that's what's going on. It's part of the social part. We all show up and somebody talks about something. So I appreciate you being that person today, Jason.
Sure thing. Figures that was Mark. That's all right, man. Yeah, sure. I always like talking about parks in the air, so I appreciate you guys letting me talk today.
I'll leave the mic open, so if you guys want to jaw jack. Jason, you want to run away or stay? It's up to you.
I can stay for a few minutes. My wife got home 5 minutes before this call started, so I need to go in and talk with her about her day. But yeah, I've got a few minutes.
By the way, Richard up there, BK2, he's one of our club members. He was stuck here for a couple of years for COVID. So we drug him in here and made him do stuff like teach us how to fox hunt and things like that. But he escaped back to Australia for a while.
Yeah.
Only for a few days. I'm actually back in Fort Worth next week. So I fly on Thanksgiving Day. I'll be in the air winging my way back to Fort Worth. Hope we can find a couple of minutes just to confirm the arrangements for the fox hunt on the 3rd of December as well. So just need to confirm where we're going to meet for breakfast ahead of that. So and then I can get the flyer out today or tonight or something like that if we're lucky.
Sounds good.
Ray Roberts State Park up in Sanger, right above Denton. That's got cell reception. We go up to there. Of course, I go to Texoma. That's only 15 miles away from me. And that's where one of the guys in our club right now is, or the Cowtown Club is. He's up at Spring Creek right now. I told him that he needs to log into Zoom.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've done a meetup with my YouTube viewers at Ray Roberts a couple of times, and that's a really pretty park.
Yep, it is. Yep. I sent him a message going, "Hey, is that who that he's talking about?" He knows who you're talking about spark plug antennas, but my friend's got spark plug antennas.
Yeah.
It's a really funky little deal. Looks like a spark plug, exactly like one.
Yeah.
Just cut in half. Yeah. Yep. Good to see you, Jason.
You too, David.
Yep.
Real quick question, is there a guideline on what defines a park? You obviously mentioned national and state parks and wildlife preserves, things like that, but is there any rule they use for defining what a park is?
It's you. I mean, there is, but I couldn't really explain it to you. I mean, like I said, they're all on the website. So if you have a question about something, they do not allow city or county parks. I know that.
Okay.
So if you have a city, and there's just too many of them throughout the nation. So it's usually state parks, or I call them state parks and above. So like national parks or larger parks like that. But yeah, it's something. And how they determine which wildlife areas and historical sites do, I don't know. There's a form on the website where you can submit and request a park be added to the database. I know guys who have completed that and got a park added before, but they're not going to add a city or a county park. So if that's what you're thinking, they won't do that.
Okay. So I figured. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Jason,
Mhm.
I know you hear this probably everywhere you go, but I'd like to thank you. I'm sure all the members of the club for all you do on YouTube to promote ham radio. You and Josh out in California. Like it's just a wealth of information, and it's like, you know, I got started like a lot of people nowadays. I got me a Bofang and got my technician's license, and now I have ham radio gear all over the house that never gets used, and buddy pole antennas, and a car full of gear that never goes anywhere. So thank you very much for all you do.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for watching. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all having me tonight. Let me know. Yeah, definitely keep me posted if y'all set up a club event to go out and activate a park somewhere. That'd be fun.
Thanks, Jason. Have a good night.
Yep. You too. Yep. See y'all.